a domestic, a resident banker, then 194A is not applicable, 195 is applicable. In fact, that is my other worry. I'll come back to that. I'll come back to that aspect, but before that. Now, a personal loan is taken. Normally what happens is post-dated checks are given. And this has an interest component. How am I to deduct tax at source? The post-dated checks are already in the possession of the person who gave me the personal loan. He will deposit it in the appointed day. That is it. I am not going to be in any manner getting it back in any form. There is a difficulty. In fact, this very same difficulty people face even in the context of leasing, where the lease rentals are paid by way of post-dated checks. But the fact remains that even if I take a personal loan for my personal purposes, still 194A could be applicable if it is not borrowed from a banker. Now coming to this domestic banker versus undomestic banker, the foreign banker. If the person is a resident, then 194A would apply. If the person is a non-resident, then what applies is the provisions of 195. So if I take a loan from Citibank, if I take a loan from Standard Chartered Bank, if I take a loan from any one of these banks, which are all foreign banks, then my requirement to deduct tax at source is not arising under section 194A, but arises under 195. And on the appointed day, let's assume it's a OCC limit, on the given day, the banker will automatically debit my account. How am I to deduct tax? Let us understand, Standard Chartered Bank is a foreign company. Look at 195. It says when you are making payments to a non-resident or to a foreign company, it does not say outside India. So even if you pay in India, the TDS obligation still remains. Now when I am paying interest to a foreign banker, 195 is applicable and the banker just debits my account. The only saving grace is, as I understand, most of these foreign banks have had the wisdom to go and approach the assessing officer and obtain a nil deduction certificate. But for our own safety purposes, we need to take a copy from him and keep it on our records, so that when the department comes back, if we have a strained relation with the banker, we still have something on record to say why we did not deduct tax at source. TDS on hire purchase payments is not much of an issue for the simple reason that the board instruction itself would say that on hire installments there is no requirement to deduct tax at source. The reason being, they say that this is an installment for payment or acquiring the asset over a period of time. But what about a finance lease? In a finance lease, I apply almost a similar mechanism. I pay the lease rental every month. At the end of the term, I get the asset into my hand. See, today all of us don't buy cars, we hire cars. The minute the EMI is over, we will change the car. So we are not buying cars, technically speaking. Somebody is funding, we keep paying EMI monthly. End of the term, invariably we would have sold the car and gone for another car. So one more EMI will start, that is all. And all of these are clearly finance leases, either from a banker or otherwise. Let me take it to be otherwise. If it is from a banker, I would not have much of a difficulty because 194A would protect me, saying that interest to a bank does not fall under 194A. But what if it is from other than the banker, say Sundaram Finance? Then also I would think that we could probably raise a defense that there is no requirement to deduct because of the express provisions in or the circular of the board which applies in relation to hire purchase and finance lease being almost on similar terms. But let's take a car for example. We will understand that a car is plant and machinery. Therefore, if you say this is rent for the car, then 194I will come into play. The only difference is you will run away from 194C and A and get into 194I probably. That the requirement to deduct may still continue. I'll move on to 194C, which is probably again one of those aspects where there is a substantial, difficulty in terms of compliance. One aspect that we have to bear in mind is that the provisions relating to TDS in relation to 194C is in relation to the gross sum paid. I repeat, it is in relation to the gross sum paid insofar as 194C is concerned, and I would think that this would apply equally to 194J. One question that most of my friends come back to me with is, should I deduct tax at source even on the service tax component while making payment? Incidentally, we will note that there is a board circular in the context of 194I rent, where the board circular has clarified that on the service tax component there is no requirement to deduct a tax at source on the service tax. But then there is a slight difference in the language which is used in 194I vis-a-vis 194C or J. 194I would say any sum by way of rent. Any sum by way of rent. Now, when they say any sum by way of rent, the board circular is well justified because service tax is not a sum by way of rent. But please remember, service tax is income. Service tax that I collect is income. It is not rent. Therefore, in the context of 194I, it is possible to take a view that it is not required to be included. The board circular is also clear. I would think this board circular can at best be extended to 194H, because 194H would also use similar language which would say by way of commission. But in the context of 194C or J, I don't think a similar view can be taken because it refers to any sum by way of income. So the TDS will have to be on the gross sum. Well, going further on freight to pay, whether a tax deduction requirement is there, circular number 715 of the board says, yes, there is a requirement. How to comply, we have to find out. That is a different issue. In respect of contractors who are in the nature of persons who are engaged in plying goods carriage vehicles, the provisions of 194C very clearly says if the person furnishes his PAN number, then there is no need to deduct. So to that extent, the difficulty is obviated. Of course, we are still stuck with 40A3 because in many cases, ASSIs are constrained to make cash payments for lorry freight. I will probably jump from here into the provisions of 194I. 194I, which talks of TDS on rent, we will see this is there in all the provisions, but it is more profound in the case of 194I. We will notice that with effect from 1/7/2010, the limit has been enhanced to 1,80,000. That means up to 36/2010, the limit was 1,20,000. It became 1,80,000 per annum. So what if I am paying a rent of, let us say, 12,000 rupees per month? In the first 3 months, though the payment is exceeding that 10,000 rupees, if we divide that by that 1,20,000 by 10, in the year, the payment is only 1,44,000. So in none of the months, the requirement to deduct a tax at source would arise. I will not probably get into many of the other aspects. I will probably get into only a couple of aspects in the context of 194J. One is with regard to what is fees for technical service. Now, before I continue on 194J, I will assure my chairman that I will not take more than the next 3 minutes. In fact, before I got up, I requested him not to send a chit as a good friend. But as a very good chairman, he promptly sent me a chit saying, you can conclude in the next 5 minutes. He was very polite at it, and there was a smiley below it. So I have no choice but to smile after seeing the smiley. So I can assure you, sir, that I will not go beyond the next 3 minutes. There is a very interesting decision of the Delhi High Court, Why I consider it interesting in the context of Bharati Cellular is they have interpreted what is a technical service. Now, if you look at 194J, it says fees for professional or technical service, and then goes on to say technical service shall have the same meaning as contained in explanation 2 to 917. And 917, the second explanation says technical service means managerial technical consultancy. Only the Income Tax Act can define a word with that word. I wanted to know what is technical. They are telling me technical means technical, managerial and consultancy. Right? This is like the definition of the term scrap. What is scrap? Scrap means scrap or waste. That's how it starts. They define a word with that very same word. Right? This is something which you cannot see excepting in a taxing statute. I don't think you would get to see this anywhere. But then we are so used to it now. Now the Delhi High Court has got a very interesting proposition. The interesting proposition is that they say that if a technical service is provided without manual intervention, it does not fall under 194J. The reason they say is you go to 917, explanation 2, it says managerial technical consultancy. Managerial and consultancy require manual intervention. Therefore, technical should also require manual intervention. So, if the technical service is being provided out and out by machines, there is no requirement to deduct. That decision I am not able to understand fully, I must say, because I cannot say I don't appreciate. That is contempt. I don't understand, probably it's beyond my comprehension, but there is a decision like this. But then I must close back at home, I will go back to Chennai. The Madras High Court in SkyCell Communications, a wonderful decision and really, really worth reading. On what is a technical service? The question was on payment of an amount to a cellular service provider, whether 194J would apply. It's a simple question and a beautiful reply. They said, if you use the word technical and merely because a technology is involved, the TDS provisions under 194J cannot get triggered. What is to be seen is whether the user was interested in the technology or was interested in the facility arising out of the technology. If he was interested in the technology, the user was interested in the technology, then the user as the payer is duty bound to deduct tax. But if the user was interested in the service arising or the facility arising as a result of the technology, then there is no need. In fact, that's a very nice decision for a simple reason that they went on to say, where is technology not there? Technology is all around. So if you rope in everything, then everything will come under 194J. What will not come in was the question. They went on to make a beautiful analysis of how 194J could apply. Friends, I think I will not wait for my chairman to send me one more chat. I will probably stop here unless my chairman permits me to answer any questions from the floor. But before I stop, I think it is my duty to thank the office bearers, the Southern India Regional Council, the committees of the SARC, and Mr. Babu Abraham in particular, including all the members of the Central Council, for inviting me and making me a part of such a glorious event, which is, to my mind, a privilege. To come here and address at a regional conference is, to my mind, a privilege to stand up in front of such senior professionals, such senior officers of the department, such persons who have got far greater exposure in their career than I have ever imagined, and to be able to share some of my thoughts is probably the greatest moment in my life. And I will thank every one of them who has been probably instrumental in bringing me here to address at this conference